Hi everyone. Well, this vlog, this is what you call a truly ropey video, and I want to talk and show some very important things on narrowboats which are neglected by many people, but it can make your enjoyment better. So I'm going to go through every rope and every fender we use on our boat and the reasons why. And the final thing before I do go, all of our ropes and fenders, they are not left on the boat over winter. We have a spare set of ropes and things for winter because they can deteriorate. So we have mooring ropes, for example, and we take all the other bits off when it's in the ice and snow. But now on with it, and I hope it makes a bit of sense to people who have boats and people who are watching. We'll look at the centre lines first. Now, we have two centre lines all the time for either side, but the other thing, and it does make a difference, is this piece here where you tie your centre lines to. Some are screwed down, just screwed down, and they have a tendency to actually rip off if you put a lot of pressure on the ropes. And the other one is, some are tiny and eventually they bend or even just crack and need refitting. So a good substantial point for your centre, for your centre ropes is important. And considering so many people just use that centre line to just leave at locks and all that, it needs to be substantial. And while we're here, these are a braided rope, and it's called Dyneema. That has a breaking strain of 2.5 tons. But what it also does, it easily fits round here, and we can put our ropes onto that. So that's as strong as anything. We're not messing about trying to fit these ropes through here on either side. So we use soft rope shackles called Dyneema. Such a strong material that, but it does make it easier. Now, speaking of ropes, the ropes we use, because there is some what are not too clever, particularly some of the black ropes, they're not too good. But these are 16mm and the synthetic hemp. They float, but they're very, very soft. So that when you get hold of it, it doesn't hurt your hands, which it very easily can do. And we've got one of them on either side. So that's 16mm synthetic hemp, 30 feet long, which is perfect for our boat, absolutely perfect, and doesn't run the risk at the back of the boat of being too long and falling round the propeller. We'll go back to the chains and that, etc. at the end. But for now, tying up. If you look how we've tied up, we don't just tie with one rope. We tie, if possible, because it's not always possible, with two. And one is called a springer. So we have our normal one, and then this one here is our springer. Our normal mooring ropes are 14mm, again, synthetic hemp, 30 feet long, ideal. And then our springer rope is a very strong braided rope what won't stretch, and that's only it'd be about 15 foot that, but it's just used as a springer, and it stops your boat moving up and down. So if you tie it proper, all these people who are starting to speed more and more past boats, it won't affect you as much. And then you'll say, what's this? Well, this is just a piece of carpet. And the idea is we put a hole in it and just put it over our dolly at the back. And all it basically does, it stops all your ropes rubbing all the paint. Because we look after, you know, if you pay for good paint work, we look after it and don't, you know, don't let it just all wear away. Because it's so easy to just let it deteriorate. And you see many boats were a few years old and they look like they're 20 years old because the paint's been allowed to deteriorate. So our rope, normal mooring, 30 foot long, 14mm semi-synthetic hemp, braided, non-stretching, 15 foot, and that's 12mm, and that's perfect for mooring up front and back like that. Before we continue, we've talked about ropes. I can't believe some people, the ropes are like you can almost snap them, and they're absolutely terrible, and they really get your hands sore. And we like a good thick solid rope what you can get hold of and it doesn't hurt your hands. To keep them in that condition as well, we have separate sets for when we're in the marina, tied up say over winter, and it doesn't matter with them, we're just tied up and they can deteriorate. But we always have a fine set of ropes because it does improve your boating. And to be honest, I like the traditional colour. Some of the black ropes are absolutely terrible. Different materials. I'll just show you one now and tell you one of the problems you can have with them. Now, black ropes. We don't use it on day-to-day mooring. We might use it at the you know, at the marina. I don't know, something about the material of some of these. One is these ropes are like elastic bands. They stretch so easily, and they're just terrible quality. And another thing about them, and it's a worry, this one, if you're not familiar, if they're wet and you say you've got a bollard and say you was in a wide beam lock, for example, and all you do is put it round like that, it tightens up on itself because it's wet, and it's almost like a knot, and your boat can tip or anything. Absolutely unbelievable. So we hate these ropes, and we can't understand why anybody wants them. Now we'll just go into a little bit more depth about mooring up. I've told you about the springer, stop your boat rocking and rolling. That's when it's practical. And I must be honest, 90% of the time we can make up some sort of springer. But there's different ways you can connect up, and currently where we are, it's wood, and the best way is to use chains. You just go round, and that's probably the more secure. Just have it chained up round the rope, come back out, round the dolly, and more importantly for us, it's actually on the boat as well. So in effect, if anybody wanted to undo it like they do in places, in cities in particular, they'd have to climb on the boat and you'd feel it. So chains are one option. Right, we'll go on to another option. I've showed you the chains. The other ones are things similar to this, piling hooks, and I'll show you how they go on. And there's also a little problem with them if you're not careful, and I'll talk about that as well. But that's a piling hook. Again, not always available, but more and more of it is becoming available to drop down, and then your rope just goes through that. They just have a slight flaw which can cause issues, and I'll just show you that in a minute. But what happens is, if you don't have it in a secure place and there's gaps, as you can see, it's already happening here. It slides along through the gap, and two things can happen. Your boat rope can go very loose, and that can get wedged solid in there. So make certain that they are solid up together. Preferably, if it's got a bolted nearby, it won't move. Because we use them now and then, but like I said, mostly it's chains. Now we're coming to the next one. Another option, if you can't put piling hooks on, or chains, or for some reason or other you prefer the hard method for mooring up, you use a mooring spike. Now there's rubbish mooring spikes and there's decent mooring spikes, and that one is a decent mooring spike because it's got a good top for stopping the rope lifting up over it, and you also can utilise this welded ring on the side, and I'll show you that as well, because many people use that wrongly, but they are very, very good quality ones, and I never know why people just have rubbish mooring spikes and that, and oh, it just drives me potty. You can tell a boater, one, how they hammer in mooring spikes. If they've not done much boating, and it's not difficult, they use the wrong type of hammer, angle the mooring spike wrong, and don't put it in enough. So number one priority, a proper lump hammer for knocking them in. You can't use a ball peen hammer or anything like that. Absolutely ridiculous. And for me, it just shows that you're not a boater and you don't understand it enough. So a proper hammer makes life easier. Simple as that. And then I'll just show you this other little bit. We always talk about respect with boaters. Well, the same goes for people on the towpath. Even bikes and that. We don't just put a spike or anything in the grass and leave it. Again, that's not right, and again it's just disrespectful. So we've got them fluorescent, so we tie them to the mooring spike and people can see where they are, you know, they don't trip over them or anything like that. It could be interesting if somebody hurt themselves on one, what would happen? But we make certain we cover ourselves with that. Simple things, what people tend to forget about. Now, as you see that mooring spike now, you think to yourself, oh, it's on the right angle, which it is, but, and this is the other problem, people don't knock them in far enough, so there's only a few inches in, so it can move. So, all you do, and you've got it in. Far better, far more secure. But now you think, how do you tie up next? It seems all so easy, and yet people do it all so wrong. So, nice and secure. So you think, oh, I'll get this sorted. So you put it through, ready for your mooring. So you've got it nice and tight there. Put it round the back. A quick hitch, and you think, fabulous. No, because if I take all this back, all the pressure is going to be on here, and what does that mean? That snaps, that piece there eventually cracks and breaks off. So that's the wrong way. So I'll show you the other way now. What you do, you leave that at the back. Put that through. Now all your strength is here on this part. So you're taking it to the boat, take it round for even further strength, hitch it in, and that is as strong as it'll ever be. And that's using all that strength. But there's something else as well, particularly if this ground is getting wet, and it's something what that circle comes very handy for, and it gives you more chance of having it not being pulled out, and I'll show you that next. Very simple. Put it through, put it like that, and just knock it that way. I won't put it all the way in, it'll take me ages, but you get the idea. That's gone through the opposite way to support that even more, and it takes some doing to remove that when a boat goes past, but that's a tip for anybody, that, and it just secures. So tying up isn't all what you think, and it's not always as straightforward as you think, but you can be logical and you can make things secure. And I always have one of them, not a wussie's hammer I call them, a proper lump hammer what you can hit there. Makes so much sense. So we're back behind the boat again on the stern. I'll just explain a couple of things. Now, what I call my peppermints there, I won't tell you what they are. I'll just say they're not strictly in the right place, but it's homage to the older boats. And I'll let somebody see if they can comment on that. So I won't tell you anything about that. But I'll talk about the back of the boat now. If you notice, we've got 3 fenders on at the back. We've got 2 tip cats, which look like flat sausages. That's the best way I can describe them. And the back one is a very, very unusual button called a Burlow button. These were made by one of the best fender makers, if not the best in the country, called Phil English, and they're made proper like they should be. So, well, these chandleries, they're not the best to be honest, and they don't last long, but Phil's will last for many years. But something else as well, and again people don't understand this or forget about it, I'm a great fan of having fenders on, and I know some people don't, and can have a few issues, but it's a choice what people take. But if you look where our swan neck is, that's the red, cream and black piece what's been bent there. Now that is self-centering, so that if I leave go of that tiller, it just centres and it doesn't swing to side. Now our name comes from the piece at the top in brass. That's the tiller, or the tiller bar. Hence we thought Tiller People's a good name, and that's where we got it from. So that's the mystery solved for that, for anybody who doesn't know. But if you look further down, our fenders at the back stick out further than the swan neck and further than the rudder, so it can never get trapped in locks. Also, if you look down carefully, and this is a thing for boaters, this, if you look at them fenders, it's pointing upwards. People who know about boating do not want to see a droopy fender, because that, if you can, well, they always have a little bit of, a droopy fender means what it is. It's not brewer's droop, but it's very similar thought of in the boating world. So always have your fender slightly raised up. That's if you have proper fenders, by the way, because other people have them what are not strictly for the canals, or don't look right anyway. Now we'll just move on to the front. Now how we're tied up here, we've got a springer on the back which will hold us enough, but the moorings here are not suitable to have anything else, so we just have the one mooring rope at the front, but it's still very secure because of that springer. But if you look at the front now, that's our button for the front of the boat. We used to have one, and people who are into boating will know who he is, made by Joe Hollingshead. He's a famous boater, still lives on his boat. And when that won, we came across Phil English, who's another decent guy with fenders, and we had him make these. And if you look as well, you notice that it's a piece of car tyre over it. Now, if we tend to, and it's very rare, brush up against the lock at the front, that protects the fender as well, it just hits the rubber. But we're not ones for having the boat up against the lock at the front, because funny enough this season we've come across a few issues where people have had their engine in gear, and they've been causing some damage and causing locks to be shut, and because they've just had it put in gear against the lock front, and it's just caused some issues. So that's our button fender. Now, another simple thing as well about fenders: don't have chains hooked down on the hull below the fender, because if you hook onto anything, your boat will be pulled downwards. Your fender should lift upwards, just lift up naturally, and that's the safe way of doing it. If you get a boat any different to that, it's been done wrong, and that's just a simple fact. And I'll just show you the same thing at the stern of the boat, and it's exactly the same at the back. All they'll do is just lift like that if they get hooked onto anything. A few people have easy snapping links further down, but not many, and I don't see the point. Just have your fenders fitted correctly and safely. It's not difficult, you know, it's just a simple thing and a safety thing. And just finally, while we're here, I know it's going off the subject a bit, but a few people's asked, if you look down, we like all the bright front, traditional front. If you see where the yellow is, and it's like an half moon, and then you've got a circle and this light blue, this is one of the traditions of boaters from years ago, and that's supposed to represent the sun, the moon and the sky, to represent 24-hour-a-day boating. I just thought I'd tell you that, because I love things like that, just little bits of history. So I think that part's covered, and we'll just go on to the side fenders. Now we'll just move on to the side of the boat. Now, very unusually for a narrowboat, our rubbing strake, the top one, goes all the way along on both sides. Twofold that works. It makes the gunnel a little bit wider when you stand on it, that's this part here, the gunnel. But also the strength, if a boat gets hit here, if something comes in and hits it there, the strength of that means it doesn't mark it. It's so strong. So if you look very carefully, that's a unique thing. 99% of boats don't have a rubbing strake across the top. They just have it for the first 10 foot or so at the back. Now, if you look carefully along the gunnel, we've got fenders on the side. One at the front, one at the middle, if you see that. And also there's something else lurking at the front, but I'll show you at the back in a minute. Fenders just make life comfortable, no doubt at all. One thing I didn't want, before I continue any further, I didn't want to put any sort of ropes or hooks or anything on this part of the boat up here and having them hanging down. Does not work. Absolutely, and they look terrible. But what we have, if you look carefully, when we had the boat built, we asked these to to be made, to be built in. Not the circles what some people have here. They just have a circle piece and it's screwed in. If that catches out, that rips out regularly as anything. So we wanted it built into the steelwork, and that's what we had. So they hold our fenders. Some people don't like fenders, but I think, why do I need any clanging around? It's only comfort for us, that's what we want. Right, what we have is this fender, which is 20 inches long, and I think it's about just under 2 inches wide. Might be a bit less, might be about 1.5 inches wide. But some fenders are made of rope, but I hate that because they get so dirty so quick, and all sorts go in them. And some are rock solid, which again I don't like. These give, if you look closely there, they're just given almost got to nothing. So they're perfect for us. 3 on each side with plenty of give. And I'll put that on a link where I got them from afterwards. But also here, and these are fabulous. Now, whether you're breasting up against somebody, or you're against the side like we are, or it's rough the side or anything like that, these are go-kart tyres, and they are just fantastic. And the places where have go-kart racing or anything like that, they throw them at you because they don't want them. But they last forever. They last forever, and they're great at the side of the boat. Absolutely superb, and I'd recommend them to anybody. So that's the way we secure our fenders. Forget the circles and the tying on there, not for us, particularly as the boat's quite low in the water as well, so your fender would be down, too far down in the water. If you can get a boat built and it's all built in, all this, I know it takes a bit longer, but it is beneficial, and it's so quick to set things up. So I think we've covered the fenders now. Any questions, you can certainly get back to us and we can answer what you want. Now, in this part of the video, Bernadette is going to show you one of the favourite tie-ups we have and what it's called. And she makes certain that the rope goes through the fur leads so it doesn't, you know, mark all the paintwork. That's what the brass fur leads are for. So if you don't mind, Bernadette, you can do it for us.
Yes, yeah. Everybody has their own way of tying up. Some people do a figure of 8 round there. All I do is a round turn and 2 half hitches, or a few round turns and a few half hitches. Okay, so it's round and round. Push it down. Take a loop so you've not got to thread the whole of the rope through, and just very simply pull it tight on itself. So once and twice. Always do more than one. And then just to keep the ropes a bit tidy, just stick them out the way in case anybody's climbing about. There you go.
Yeah, and we also make certain, we prefer to having our ropes tied actually on the boat than on the canal side, don't we?
Yeah, so if anybody's going to untie you, you might feel it. If it's untying on the bank, you won't feel it.
Okay, that's great, that, Bernadette. Thanks for that. Well, that took longer than what you'd think. You know, when you're talking about ropes and fenders and tie-ups, you wonder how it can take so long. Well, the simple reason is it's one of the most neglected parts of narrowboating, and yet it's so important. So I hope you've got a few ideas there about things. If you've any questions, you can just fire them off to us and we can answer you. But I think for now that's another one done, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Ta-ra!